I think when doing the meta-analysis for the Clay versus United States case, two of the main things that come up is our race for one and religion. Those are what I think this case is based on. So basically, with Muhammad Ali, you have a guy who's in the Nation of Islam, which is a black supremacist group. So he's there, and he's one of the best athletes of the time. So on one end, he's dominating everything and he's must see TV all the time. So those on your screen side. But then he's preaching black supremacist things that don't fit the narrative that you want to portray to your country. So I think he was supposed to be used. He was used as the face of Nation of Islam. So when this case came to him, I think it was imperative that they got him in jail, or they wanted to silence him, and that was the best way to silence him: send him to war, get him off the scene, and then let the Nation of Islam kind of die out from there. But what ended up happening was, looking at the law from the law aspects, it was pretty interesting how it happened, because looking through the narrative, he right from the beginning, he should have got his conscientious objector approved right from the beginning. But you can tell this is kind of when how he talked about a political crime versus regular crime. This is a political crime, because right from the beginning, uh, when he appealed, they had a third party go research him, his family, and see if he was truly in their religion. And when the guy came, the trial officer came back and told, the appeal board, yeah, he's real. He should be accepted. They denied him, which doesn't make any sense, considering that before this time they had actually given Jehovah Witnesses consensus objectors, so no Jehovah Witness had to go in the war. But somehow the Nation of Islam, you know, they 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 weren't considered the religion that could also go out and do something and not get put into war, which was interesting. So I think what happens is basically they go to the case, they find him guilty, and then looking back on it, one of the judges looks and sees, and then he realizes, oh man, we might have messed up. The war that he's talking about isn't the war that he was saying that he doesn't want to fight, isn't like the just because it's for white people. It's like the only war that he would fight is for God, and some hypothetical war between, like, the devils and stuff like that. So this is when the political part comes in now, after one of the judges reverses it to a 5-4 decision. So because now all of a sudden it's like, if they say, yeah, he has conscience as objector, that means no one from the Nation of Islam can ever be put to war, ever. So that's when it, like I said, like at that time, that was seen kind of to the government as a terrorist group. Though they were following their, First Amendments, and they had their Fourth Amendment to freedom of religion, they had their First Amendment rights to freedom of speech, because they weren't, inciting violence and anything like that. They were still seen as a terrorist group. So in order for them to reverse that case and then save face with the other branches, because as you know, like, the Supreme Court is the weakest branch, period. If you look at the statistics, they basically do what the majority of houses say, because both houses have more power than the Supreme Court. So looking at how they had to save face, they had to use basically a technicality that they could have seen if they were using a fair trial to begin with, and look back and see, oh, okay, so even though he didn't even though he does have the right to religion, when we look back at the appeal board, we're now seeing that, oh, the guy didn't give a reason for rejecting the appeal, so that's why, not because of religion, but that's why. And I mean, it's kind of it kind of ties into the whole talk about how we had with Justice Byrd from California, how she was there, and she basically, because she didn't believe in, like, the death penalty or something like that, because that was her, she wouldn't rule on for the death penalty. she basically was kicked out of office just politically because she was labeled as soft on crime, and that was it. She got kicked out of the office. So kind of like it kind of you start really seeing that a lot of these cases really aren't just about law and order. There's a different facet to all of them, and they all have their own political agendas. And it's if you're reading this book, it's called Thinking Like a Lawyer, and it talks about how sometimes the law isn't always like what's right for like right now. I think the Supreme Court's always look at the long term, what's going to go happen now. And I think in Ali's case, it was okay if we give if we give the Nation of Islam consensus objectors, how are we, and then we give Jehovah Witnesses already, how are we going to do Christians? And if everyone's a Christian, then we can't put anyone to war. And then how is that going to work with the draft? There's always like a level of, I guess, the greater good that comes from it. And also just, just unfair treatment. Because I don't, it's not fair for, a man to almost be put in prison because of something that they believe based on real stuff, because this is the 1970s. It was interesting watching videos even when he's in interviews, even like the anchors that bring him in for interviews, he would talk and guys would be like, oh, can you shut your mouth for a second? And that was like weird, because if you ever see like an athlete go on like Jimmy Fallon or something like that, they're not gonna talk to them like that at all. Extremely respectful and all that, but they're living in a society where they're second class citizens, and he didn't want to go to fight for a country that treated him like that. So I think when it comes down to like really like looking at that case, that's really what surrounded it: race, religion, and politics.